astronauts now that they've
You are
docked
go
those.
for 1.1 of procedure 2.102.
Copy, go in step 1.1 of 2.102.
And that voice being NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg communicating with Justin Cartledge here on the ground, his Capcom, the capsule communicator. That's the person speaking with the astronauts aboard the International Space Station. Woody is now stepping through some procedures, including he will get access inside the pressurized mating adapter and then pressurize the vestibule. We want to make sure the pressure is almost equal with the pressures on board Dragon and the station. He'll use a small valve on the station's hatch to slowly introduce air into the vestibule. Flight controllers here in Houston will monitor the pressure and temperature readings inside and verify that everything is leak-free before we get ready to open the hatches. Again, it's about a 2-hour process to get everything pressurized and checked out before we open the hatches. And following that hatch open, we'll have a welcoming ceremony with all 4 Ax-2 astronauts, as well as our 7 crew members living aboard the station. So if it's not too early for you to do some math, yes, that is 11 people that'll be living aboard the International Space Station for at least the next week.
Houston Station, node 2 overhead, hatch open.
Houston copies.
Again, we are live covering the arrival of the Ax-2 crew to the International Space Station. This is the second private astronaut mission that has visited the International Space Station following Axiom 1 flight last year. Our crew members aboard Dragon Freedom today include former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. Up until now, she has spent 665 days in space, so she's looking to add to that total. It's more than any U.S. astronaut and more than any woman in the world. She's joined by pilot John Shoffner. And the 2 mission specialists representing the Saudi Space Commission are Alqarni and Rayyanah Barnawii.
Houston Station on 2, we're ready for step 2.2 on your go.
Checking. You are go at 2.2.
Copy, go.
As we hear NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg stepping through the procedures with the grounds go, he will begin pressurizing the vestibule shortly. In the meantime, NASA astronaut Frank Rubio continues to conduct some hardware servicing on the space station.
SpaceX on the big loop. If desired, reference procedure 4.400 for monitoring vestibule pressurization.
confirmation from teams on the ground that vestibule pressurization has begun. Again, this is the small space between the Dragon hatch and the space station hatch. We want to bring that up from vacuum to about 14.7 psi. That's about the same pressure as the International Space Station, approximately the same pressure we're used to here on Earth. Astronauts on the space station live in a mixed nitrogen-oxygen environment, again, very similar to what we have on Earth.
And Dragon station on the big loop, no response required. ISS power connection established.
Station on 2, step 2.4, A pass pressure equalized at 1339 GMT.
Houston copies 1339 GMT.
You can see some movement, and we have our view back of Dragon. As we see a sunrise in the background, this view of Dragon Freedom with the Ax-2 crew aboard docked to the Node 2 Zenith port on the International Space Station. Again, that docking coming at 8:12 a.m. Central Time. The crew inside are now out of their suits. They are preparing for ingress to the International Space Station. Again, this is a process, though, so we are pressurizing the vestibule, the space between the two spacecraft. And if you see some color changes, that's because the International Space Station and Dragon are now flying into an orbital sunrise. They are 268 statute miles over the South Pacific Ocean. Now that they're docked, these two will travel 17,500 miles per hour together, seeing 16 sunrises and sunsets a day. So the Ax-2 crew is certainly in for a treat for their planned 8-day stay. Here in Mission Control Houston, teams are handing over from the Orbit 1 shift to the Orbit 2 shift. We have had Marcos Flores as our flight director this morning. He will be handing over to Vincent Laporte. Again, Woody Hoberg aboard the International Space Station is leading the team's...
Freedom, Houston, stand by for hardline audio config.
Freedom is stand by.
NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg working to pressurize the vestibule, the space between the hatches. Again, this takes about 2 hours before the crew members float aboard the International Space Station. All 4 Axiom 2 crew members still in Dragon Freedom, as you see there, docked to the Node 2 Zenith port. Once they float aboard, they will conduct a welcome ceremony with all crew members before heading into a safety briefing. These private astronauts trained for many contingency scenarios down here on the ground, but the teams aboard the International Space Station will help show them different locations and procedures now that they are on orbit. Later today, the Dragon Freedom crew will work to transfer some cargo from Dragon to the International Space Station. That includes some of the scientific research they'll be doing this week, as well as hardware or food needed.
Freedom Houston on the big loop for a comm check. Hardline audio configuration is complete.
Freedom has you loud and clear on the big loop hardline.
Good news.
And Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, permission to come on board with cameras.
You can come on board now, but we'll probably have to ask you to go away again in a little bit. Welcome aboard.
Copy that. We'll keep them exterior until you're ready.
Okay, thank you.
Recently, you heard a call from Mission Control in Hawthorne at SpaceX headquarters, checking with the crew to see if they could turn cameras on the spacecraft. They'll hold off for a little bit longer on that, but we still have all 4 crew members aboard. It has now been 41 minutes since they docked to the Node 2 Zenith port, making their official arrival at the International Space Station. On the space station side, NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg is preparing the APAS hatch for opening.
And SpaceX Dragon on the big loop, just to let you know, we've got all four suits drying. The shortest timer is at passing 7 minutes right now.
Copy all, 4 suits drying, and 7 minutes have elapsed. And Dragon with suits drying, I can give you a go for sections 1 through 3 of 4.400.
Copy 1 through 3 of 4.400.
Again, you're watching live coverage of the Ax-2 crew arrival at the International Space Station. The crew docked Dragon Freedom to the Node 2 zenith-facing port this morning at 8:12 a.m. Central Time.
Dragon,
And that
this
view
is Ray for food inventory and water inventory.
Copy that, Ray. Ready to copy for inventory.
203, 5 bottles. 207, 4 bottles. For food, 305, 1 meal and a snack. 313, 1 meal and a snack. 307, 1 meal and a snack. 315, 1 meal and a snack.
Copy that, and to read back, we have 5 bottles from 203, 4 bottles from 207, 1 meal and 1 snack from locations 305, 313, 307, and 315.
Good copy. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you just heard, Saudi Space Commission astronaut Rayyanah Barnawii reporting out the inventory aboard Crew Dragon. Everything is meticulously tracked aboard the space station and Dragon as well, so she was reporting which meals and snacks had been consumed during their approximate 16-hour flight from launch last night at 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time to docking this morning at 9:12 a.m. Eastern Time. Again, you're watching live coverage of the Ax-2 arrival at the International Space Station, the second private astronaut mission to visit the space station following the Axiom 1 flight last year. Currently aboard Dragon Freedom, which you see on your screen, attached to the station's Node 2 Zenith port, are Commander Peggy Whitson, pilot John Shoffner, and mission specialists Alqarni and Rayyanah Barnawii. On the space station side, NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg is working to pressurize
and Dragon SpaceX on the big loop for procedure 4.400.
Go for 4.400.
Hey, so we're getting close to finishing the leak check, but you have a go to perform Section 5 for the dock waste system configuration.
Okay, go for Section 5. We'll try and get all the other activities out of the way first and get that in work.
Copy all.
We heard Peggy Whitson earlier say that the crew has doffed their suits. They are now in probably their flight suits ahead of heading into the International Space Station. We're expecting that around 10 a.m. Central Time for those hatches to open. They are drying their suits currently, just keeping them in good shape ahead of a trip home. They're planning on about an 8-day stay aboard the International Space Station. However, several things can affect that departure date, mainly the weather at the landing location. SpaceX has a number of select landing locations off the coast of Florida. And we watch for things like wave height or wave cadence, as well as wind speeds, to ensure that the crew have the safest and most comfortable landing possible.
Station Houston on the big loop. We have a good leak check. ISS is go to complete vestibule equalization and open the APAS hatch at step 3.1 of procedure 2.102.
All right, station copies go in 3.1.
For those of you just joining our coverage of Axiom 2 crew in our SpaceX Dragon Freedom capsule, which is what you see there on your screen, has successfully docked to the International Space Station. In fact, we had a new record time for SpaceX operations. We actually beat the Crew 4 record from liftoff to soft capture. Our record time now is about 15 hours and 35 minutes from liftoff to soft capture. So basically the most efficient and fastest transit to the International Space Station from Pad 39A. That's a beautiful view there of that Dragon Freedom capsule. This is docked at the Node 2 Zenith port. The Crew 6 capsule, until about a couple weeks ago, was docked to this same port, and we did a port relocation maneuver with the Crew 6 crew to move it down to the Node 2 forward port. By doing so, we were able to clear this Zenith port for the Ax-2 mission, as well as the upcoming CRS-28 cargo resupply mission. Although it might look stagnant if you look at it quickly, we can see planet Earth rotating slowly behind, or rather under, the Dragon capsule and the International Space Station. There at the bottom of the screen, you can kind of make out the Canadarm, which is the robotic arm that the crew on board station will utilize in order to remove cargo from the unpressurized section of Dragon located in the trunk, which is essentially the top half, in this orientation, the top half of the Dragon capsule. Of course, when we are sitting at the launch pad or other conventional views of Dragon, it's the bottom half of Dragon. But really, it's that half black, half white cylindrical portion of Dragon that we see there. This view is also great because you get a really clear view of the nose cone and all of the hardware that the nose cone protects during the launch phase. Of course, we got some ambient noise here at SpaceX headquarters as our first shift operations are well underway. During the ascent phase, that nose cone will be closed, and that protects the forward hatch as well as the forward bulkhead Draco thrusters. So right now, the Axiom 2 crew, they have taken their suits off. We heard the call out earlier that the suits are drying. And as you can see, the Dragon capsule is docked, and they have completed pressurization of the APAS hatch. So we are making great progress. But talking about the crew, let's get to learn a little bit more about them in case you may have missed our introductions earlier in the broadcast, as we've been going for a little bit while. So let's learn more about the Ax-2 crew.
Yeah, it's always good to get a little refresher on our Ax-2 crew here. The Ax-2 mission is commanded by retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. Born and raised in Beaconsfield, Iowa, she was inspired along with the world when she watched the Apollo 11 crew walk on the moon. She has since become the most experienced American astronaut and one of the most decorated. Whitson flew 3 long-duration missions to the ISS and has more cumulative time in space, 665 days, than any U.S. astronaut and more than any woman in the world. She has conducted 10 spacewalks with over 60 hours of time and has performed hundreds of research experiments on board the ISS. Not only is she the commander for this mission, but Peggy also serves as the director of human spaceflight for Axiom Space.
The pilot for Ax-2 is private astronaut John Shoffner. Born in Alaska and raised in Kentucky, Shoffner is a STEAM education advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast. A pilot since the age of 17, John has over 8,500 flight hours holding commercial, instrument, single-engine, and multi-engine ratings in land and sea aircraft, as well as helicopter. He also holds ratings in former military jets and high-performance radial engine aircraft. As an athlete, John has years of competitive experience in water skiing, cycling, whitewater kayaking, hang gliding, skydiving, and base jumping. John trained as the Ax-1 backup pilot, and during this mission on Ax-2, plans to invest a lot of his time in STEAM education activities aimed at empowering educators and inspiring teachers.
And representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Ali Alqarni was born in March 1992 in Sabt al-Alaya, Saudi Arabia. Ali is fluent in English as well as his native Arabic, and as an Air Force captain, has 12 years of experience flying on multiple aircraft, primarily on the F-15SA in service to the Royal Saudi Air Force. Ali graduated with a Bachelor of Aerospace Science degree in 2013 from King Faisal Air Academy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Also representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Rayyanah Barnawii, or as we hear her identify herself as Ray on comms, was born in September 1988 in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Rayyanah has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. She is fluent in English and Turkish, as well as native Arabic. She has been a research lab technician since 2013 in the Stem Cell and Tissue Re-engineering Program at King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center, and located in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
And there they are, the Ax-2 crew. We are so excited for them to now be docked to the ISS, and so proud that they've made it this far after all their training. This is a really wonderful moment to be celebrating their journey to space.
Yeah, obviously Peggy, a NASA legend, has spent years training to go to space. Our 3 formerly space newbies, now that they are up there and now docked to the International Space Station. Can't really call them rookies anymore. But yeah, all 4 of them have been training extensively for this mission, and it's so great to see that they get to use it now.
Yes, absolutely. And on those cards, you may have seen their patch on their flight suits. And since the beginning of the space race in the 1960s, a custom patch has been used to represent and identify individual missions and their crews. It's also a long-held custom that these crews influence or even outright design their own patches, injecting them with symbolism and personal elements to commemorate their journey. This crew has continued this long-standing tradition with their official Ax-2 mission patch, so let's take a look. The Ax-2 mission patch highlights the beauty of space, hope for the future.
Station on 2, the pass hatch is open with negative condensation.
Oh.
That is great news.
Houston copies.
Sounds like a hatch open update. Okay, continuing on this patch. This patch highlights the beauty of space, hope for the future, and the important role of the ISS to unite the best aspects of humanity. Shown prominently are the mission name, Ax-2, the family names of the crew members, and the flags of the United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the two nations represented on board today's flight. There are 5 shapes drawn as constellations, and these represent the crew's intention to focus on inspiration, education, and teaching through STEAM education initiatives. And so there's a constellation for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. The arched path leading from Earth to space is colored lavender, which is culturally significant in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, symbolizing hospitality. That arched path and color also reflect KSA's desire to be part of the space sector and position itself as a contributor to the global space community. Then, naturally, the space station is central to the image as the destination of this crew, while Earth is featured with prominent horizon lines symbolizing optimism, hope, and inspiration. Just as you see this mission patch worn by the crew on their flight suits, this patch is currently adorning the walls of Axiom Space's mission control in Houston and is placed in a position of honor everywhere this crew is being supported for the duration of their mission.
As someone that is an engineer, but I have a background in music and theater and art, I have a personal appreciation for just how evident and apparent the emphasis on STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics. It's been a long morning. I think I got those letters in the right order. But yeah, it's so great to see all of that represented so strongly on the Ax-2 mission patch. I love it. It's one of my favorite mission patches that we've had. Now let's turn it back over to NASA's Leah Cheshire, who is standing by at Mission Control Center at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, for an update on space station operations. Leah?
Thanks, Kate and Duke. Yes, we are still here in International Space Station Flight Control Room at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, continuing to monitor the arrival of the Ax-2 crew and their eventual welcome to the International Space Station. Again, we docked at 8:12 a.m. Central Time this morning, so a little over an hour ago, to the Node 2 Zenith, or space-facing port, which is where you see the crew now. They are flying over the country of Chad, 256 miles above Earth. And those calls you heard about the hatch, those are the APAS hatch and the vestibule hatch. NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg is stepping through hatch procedures this morning. He's currently in the APAS hatch, and I looked it up to make sure to get it right for all of you. APAS stands for Androgynous Peripheral Assembly System. I think it's pretty clear why we call it APAS, keep it short and sweet. But that hatch has been opened. He is inside, and he has also opened the vestibule hatch. So the Dragon hatch is not open yet. We've still got some things that we need to work through on the SpaceX side as well as on the NASA side to make sure that we're ready to welcome the Ax-2 crew members aboard. After launch yesterday at 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, Dragon made its way to the International Space Station, conducting a series of burns and checkpoints along the way. This view inside the International Space Station, you're getting a look at NASA astronaut Woody Hoburg. This is his first flight to the space station. He arrived as a member of Crew 6 earlier this year. He is preparing the space station for entry of the Ax-2 crew. As you can see, he's working on some venting. That tube will go from the space station into Dragon and kind of help equalize the and balance out the air and the mix of the air that's in the space station to what's currently in Dragon. Again, the Dragon hatch is not open yet. We are remaining live all the way through their welcome ceremony when we see the 4 crew members, Peggy Whitson, John Shoffner, the Alqarni and Rayyanah Barnawii, float aboard the International Space Station for the start of their approximately 8-day stay. While aboard the space station, the Ax-2 crew members are going to conduct a plethora of scientific research, as well as conduct STEAM outreach with students and other educational organizations here on Earth. And again, they dock to the Node 2 Zenith port. This is where the Crew 6 Dragon, known as Endeavour, was docked just a few weeks ago. However, it was moved from one hatch to the next. So we have 2 Dragons, both docked to Node 2.
ISS is ready for Dragon hatch equalization.
Houston copies on the big loop. Stand by for equalization. Expect to take 3 minutes. Additionally, ground is a little bit behind on configurations, so expect a slight delay for hatch opening.
Station copies.
Dragon copies.
As NASA astronaut Woody Hoburg gets things ready on the station side, the Ax-2 crew is still aboard Dragon, and they continue to have some steps that they're working through as well. We heard Peggy Whitson discuss the suit drying that's going on, as well as Rayyanah Barnawii reported down some of the consumables that had been used during the flight, including meals that were eaten. Everything is meticulously tracked aboard Dragon as well as aboard the International Space Station to make sure that it can be accessed when needed. But we are moving along pretty smoothly this morning toward hatch opening. The International Space Station uses GMT as their time zone, so it's about 2:28 p.m. Pacific, or sorry, 2B Pacific aboard the International Space Station right now. So Crew members are in the middle of
SpaceX
their
Dragon
workday,
on the big loop.
most of them taking...
Section 5 is complete for the waste configuration.
And copy that, Peggy. Section 5 complete. Any deltas to inventory?
Looking at our timeline, some of the crew members on the space station side are enjoying their midday meal. Of course, after floating aboard, we'll see the Ax-2 crew move into their welcome ceremony, where they get to spend a little time with the other 7 crew members on the International Space Station and discuss their initial reactions to being on orbit and visiting the orbiting laboratory. Afterward, they'll step into their safety briefing and make sure that everyone is aware of the location of any certain safety items aboard the International Space Station, as well as what to do in any event of a contingency. After the safety briefing, the the Dragon Freedom astronauts, the Ax-2 crew, will begin moving some of the cargo from Dragon into the International Space Station side.
Station Dragon Houston on the big loop. Big picture update based on what we see for open ground and crew actions. We see that we're about 15 minutes out from hatch opening.
Dragon copies 15 minutes out.
And station copies 15 minutes.
Teams on the ground and teams on the space station continuing to step through their procedures, working toward hatch opening in approximately 15 minutes.
And Dragon SpaceX on 2 for status.
ahead. SpaceX on 2.
Hey, was just wondering, do we have a change to inventory due to the waste system flush?
And you have a change to what?
Yeah, to our inventory for water bottles consumed.
No, we actually planned for the change in inventory, but since then, I pulled out one more bottle out of the same bag and 9 that still had bottles left. Actually, make it 2 more. John wants to grab one, too.
And copy that. That's 2 bottles from which location?
Section 9, bag 204.
Copy that. 2 bottles from 204. And just checking in, are we able to come back on board with cameras?
Just another minute, please.
Copy that.
We're about 10 minutes away from Dragon hatch opening. International Space Station and Dragon are 261 statute miles over Kazakhstan, about to enter into an orbital nighttime. Again, we see 16 sunrises and sunsets a day, so anticipating another one of those in just a few minutes. You'll see some of the lighting change if we have views outside of the spacecraft. But again, we are tracking about 9:45 a.m. Central Time for Dragon hatch opening. We'll see the Ax-2 crew members float into the capsule and then begin the welcome ceremony. Again, we are in a TDRS handover, meaning we do not have KU band. That is the antenna we use to bring down our video from the International Space Station. So we are anticipating the crew to float through the Dragon hatch at about 9:45 a.m. Central Time. We anticipate having good video at that time, so we'll get to welcome those 4 crew members aboard and see their smiling faces now that they've arrived at the space station.
SpaceX Dragon on 2, you can come on board.
Copy that, Peggy. Bringing cameras back on board.
SpaceX Dragon. The first two suits are dry, but we're just going to hold on packing them until after the event, if that sounds right to you.
Yeah, copy that, Peggy. We'd recommend opening the hatch first and then possibly completing the task for stowing the suits before ingressing into ISS.
Okay, copy. Will do.
This is a view of Mission Control Space at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. These teams have been monitoring the flight of Dragon Freedom since launch yesterday afternoon, actually before launch yesterday afternoon. That launch coming at 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time from Florida. A flawless launch, and then about a 16-hour rendezvous to the International Space Station. We got into integrated operations earlier this morning once we crossed through the approach ellipsoid, a 4 by 2 by 2 kilometer invisible boundary around the space station that helps us govern visiting spacecraft and their arrival and departure. Teams here in Mission Control Houston, now on your screen, are being led by Vincent LaCourte, Flight Director. They're working with astronauts aboard the International Space Station and staff this room 24/7, 365 to ensure that those astronauts and the space station systems remain supported. We've had continuous presence aboard the International Space Station for over 23 years now. And we'll be welcoming 4 crew members shortly as part of the Ax-2 mission, the second private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. This view coming from their mission control, also here in Houston, Texas. They'll remain on console all week to monitor the status of the astronauts, as well as help them step through their research, payloads, and any downlink opportunities that they have. And we're expecting to regain video communications with the space station and Dragon shortly. Just a few moments from now, we'll see the Ax-2 crew float through the hatch and bring our total of crew members living on the space station to 11. Everything looking good ahead of hatch opening on both sides, the station and Dragon. We're just standing by to regain video communications before we go for that hatch open so we can ensure we'll see the smiling faces of our 4 new crew members joining the Expedition 69 crew on the International Space Station. Again, we expect them to stay for about a week before returning on Dragon Freedom back to Earth.
In Dragon SpaceX on the Big Loop, S-band will be deactivated shortly. Dragon to ground will no longer be available for comms. Please verify PTT destinations are set to ISS.
Wilco.
Teams in Hawthorne speaking with the crew still aboard Dragon Freedom, letting them know that shortly they will not have the ability to communicate from or through the Dragon to ground loop itself. However, they will start using the loops aboard the International Space Station to talk with teams here in Mission Control Houston as well as in Hawthorne. Again, we are getting close to hatch opening, docking this morning occurring at 8:12 a.m. Central Time, so about an hour and a half ago. It was a very smooth ride to orbit yesterday, launching at 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, and then again about a 16-hour transit, the fastest on record for a Dragon crew to the International Space Station. Take a look inside Dragon Freedom as the crew members of Axiom 2.
We have all the suits stowed and feed procedure 40.12 complete.
Copy all, Peggy. 4.012 complete.
Again, this view of the crew inside Dragon Freedom, our 4 astronauts who have arrived as part of Axiom Mission 2, the second private mission to the International Space Station. Up in the center of the screen, still sort of in her seat, that's former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson, the commander of this crew. Over near the window, you can see Ali Alqarni, representing the Saudi Space Commission. Down below him, holding on to one of the footrests, is John Shoffner, the pilot. And just off camera, you can see her hand right now. That's Rayyanah Barnawii, also representing the Saudi Space Commission. We are standing by for hatch opening of Dragon Freedom. Again, you're looking live inside Dragon Freedom as we prepare for the hatch to be opened and these 4 crew members to float into the International Space Station on what is the second private astronaut mission to the orbiting laboratory. They will remain at the space station for about 8 days before undocking and returning to Earth. While they're on board, we will have a total of 11 people living and working aboard the space station. Again, this crew launched at 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time yesterday, docking this morning at 9:12 a.m. Eastern Time. The hatches are configured to be open, so we are just standing by for that final go call to the crew. We'll remain on air through their welcome ceremony, where you get to hear some words from the crew themselves on their flight, as well as what they plan for this time on board. Afterwards, we will wrap our show as the crew steps into their safety briefings and eventually gets to work aboard the space station.
Dragon SpaceX on 2 for hatch open.
Go for Dragon.
Hey Peggy, so just big picture. Following hatch open, we'd like you to complete Part C of 2.102 prior to station ingress. We're still ahead of the timeline, so we've got some time to complete these tasks in the nominal sequence. With that, you are go for hatch opening per decal, followed by the remaining actions in procedure 4.400, section 6.
Copy. Hatch open per decal and section C.
That's affirmative, Peggy, and section 6 of 4.400 as well.
Yes, copy. Section 6 of 4.400 as well. Thank you.
And we've got a view here in Dragon Freedom as Ali Alqarni works to open the Dragon side of the hatch. On the other side of the Dragon hatch is NASA astronaut Woody Hoburg waiting to welcome the crew on board after having completed all of the preparations this morning.
SpaceX Dragon hatch is open.
Houston copies.
SpaceX copies.
At 10 a.m. Central Time, the Dragon hatch is open, preparing to see our crew members float through and join the International Space Station.
Houston, the IMV duct is installed and we are ready for IMV activation.
Houston copies.
Again, Dragon hatch open at 10 a.m. Central Time after docking at 8:12 a.m. Central Time following their approximately 16-hour journey from the Space Coast of Florida to the International Space Station.
And Houston Station in the Dragon, we're at step 6.3, ready for the procedures for the LIO.
Copy that, Peggy. Houston is checking. Dragon Houston, on the big loop, you have a go for step 6.3 and procedure 2.102.
Go for 6.3, 2.102. Thanks.
Again, we are preparing for the Ax-2 crew to float through the Dragon hatch and join the space station crew. On the right-hand side of your screen, you see NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg, who has monitored their arrival this morning, first in the cupola, and then worked to prepare these hatches, pressurizing the vestibule, that space between both hatches, and eventually assisting in opening the APAS hatch, as well as then Ali Alqarni, just at 10 a.m. Central Time, 5 minutes ago, opening the Dragon hatch. Again, this is live coverage of the arrival of the Ax-2 crew to the International Space Station. We are just standing by for those crew members to make their way out of Dragon and into the space station moments from now. UAE astronaut Sultan Al-Nayati just floating out of screen on the right-hand side there. He has been working alongside Woody Hoberg this morning to prepare the hatches for the crew to float through, as well as monitoring their arrival. Both Hoberg and Al-Nayati arrived as part of the Crew 6 crew and are now both members of Expedition 69, living and working aboard the International Space Station. Teams are also preparing the intermodule ventilation. That was the tube that we saw earlier that Woody Hoberg was working with. They will route that from the station side into the Dragon side to help equalize the atmospheres between both Dragon and station. Currently, the International Space Station is flying 264 statute miles southwest of Fiji. They are in an orbital nighttime, and here we have a great view of 4 of our crew members on the International Space Station. On the far left, that's NASA astronaut Steve Bowen. Down in the bottom left, NASA astronaut Frank Rubio.
Houston on 2, LIO cartridge is sealed per the decal at 15:08.
SpaceX copies.
NASA's Woody Hoberg was on the right of your screen, and in the center, Sultan Al-Nayati. Again, preparations to egress Dragon continue. You can hear Commander Peggy Whitson discussing with teams on the ground that they are still stepping through those final checks.
Dragon for procedure. Do you want us to continue on step 7?
Yeah, it's affirmative on section step 7.
Again, hatches between both Dragon and the International Space Station are open. Teams in Dragon, or the astronauts in Dragon, just continuing their final checkouts before moving into the space station side, where they will conduct their welcome ceremony.
Dragon on 2, all the valves are closed, including the PPRV ISO.
SpaceX copies. Thanks.
Again, this is a view from inside Node 2, also known as Harmony. The Ax-2 crew today docked to the Zenith, or space-facing port. There is another Dragon spacecraft docked to the forward-facing port.
That is SpaceX Dragon configuration is complete at step 8.9 of 2102.
Houston copies.
SpaceX copies.
This crew, part of the 7 that are on the International Space Station, patiently waiting their 4 new crew members to arrive for the next 8 days. Not pictured in this frame, there are also 3 Roscosmos cosmonauts on board, including Sergei Prokopyev, Dmitry Petelin, and Andrei Fedyaev. So with the addition of these 4 crew members about to float on the space station, we will have an 11 total astronauts on station. And we have our first views of the Axiom crew members floating aboard. First is Commander Peggy Whitson rejoining the International Space Station. Next up is pilot John Shoffner making his first visit. Also on his first trip to space, you can see Ali Alqarni representing the Saudi Space Commission. All smiles as he floats through the Dragon hatch. And rounding out the Axiom 2 crew, that's Rayyanah Barnawii, also of the Saudi Space Commission. The crew of the space station is now 11 crew members. Big smiles from Rayyanah Barnawii. She is now the first female Saudi to go to space. With Commander Peggy Whitson at the helm, these astronauts are in good hands. Peggy has 665 days already lived in space. She's just adding to that total on this mission. John Shoffner, his first trip to space. Getting some help out from Woody Hoberg, NASA astronaut, who is also on his first trip to space. He's been on the space station now for 81 days. Again, the total number of astronauts and cosmonauts on board the International Space Station now at 11. Three of the astronauts on the space station represent NASA, 3 represent Roscosmos, 2 represent the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, 1 represents the United Arab Emirates. Again, we are standing by for the start of the welcome ceremony. The crew will take some time to do some scene and voice checks and make sure that their microphones are set up properly, as well as that we have them all in frame before going into their welcome remarks. And of course, afterward, we will wrap our coverage before they step into their work and life aboard the International Space Station for the next 8 days.
Station Houston on 2 for Frank and PAO.
Hello, with you on 2.
Hey, Frank, just wanted to tag up with you on the PAO event. We're thinking about doing a scene and voice in about 7 minutes from now. Will that work for you?
That'll That'll be perfect. We will call you back in about, and we can even do 5 minutes if you guys want, but we'll call you back in 7 minutes.
Copy that. We prefer closer to 7 minutes as we have a handover in about 5 minutes from now.
Sounds great.
As you heard the Capcom relay to NASA astronaut Frank Rubio, we are expecting a handover. We're expecting that short handover in just a few minutes. We want to make sure that we have great audio and video from our visiting astronauts. So we are holding for that short handover, and then we will start the welcome ceremony. Again, crew arrived this morning at 8:12 a.m. Central Time, the Dragon hatch opening at 10 a.m. Central Time, and then crew members floating aboard just moments ago. Ali Alqarni, it looks like he already has the hang of things on his first flight to space. The Axiom crew has trained for months in preparation for this mission. The Axiom crew has been training for months in preparation for this mission here at Johnson Space Center as well as at SpaceX, working with teams on the research that they will be conducting as well as learning space station systems. Three countries represented here. We've got Tan Al Nayati of UAE, two Roscosmos cosmonauts, as well as our two new astronauts representing the Saudi Space Commission on their 8-day stay on the International Space Station. Just above Barnawi and Alqarni's heads, you can see the two EMUs, extravehicular mobility units, used by USOS astronauts on spacewalks. Those have been moved from the airlock to allow a little more space for the Axiom crew during this flight. Of course, we do have 11 crew members on board now, so we have to make some room for sleep spaces. And again, we are standing by anticipating a satellite handover here momentarily. Once we've regained communications, we'll go through some voice checks with the astronauts. And there it is, as expected, that handover from our satellites. We'll do those scene and voice checks when we come back to make sure that we have a picture-perfect view of the crew members before they give us some welcome remarks. This view from International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Houston, Texas. Teams continue to monitor the arrival of our 4 new visitors, as well as all of the systems aboard the International Space Station and the astronauts and cosmonauts that live there. Just over 2 hours now since the Ax-2 crew arrived to the zenith or space-facing port on the Harmony module, also known as Node 2. That docking coming at 8:12 a.m. Central Time. Hatch opening about 26 minutes ago, 10 a.m. Central Time. So we should regain that video and audio communication with the space station momentarily.
Houston Station on 2 for scene and voice check.
Hey, Frank, we are ready for scene and voice whenever you guys are ready. And as a reminder, you'll be on the handheld mic for today's event.
Okay, sounds good. And let us know if that scene works for you, and then I can do the countdown whenever you're ready.
Frank, if you wouldn't mind, if you could gather everybody into their spots, we'll take a look at the scene once everyone's in place.
Crew members begin to move into their locations for the welcome ceremony. Obviously, we have regained communications through the tracking data and relay satellite systems.
Houston Station on 2, say again for scene and voice.
Hey, Woody, we just want to get everyone into position before we do our scene check.
All right, we copy. We'll group up.
Like I said earlier, looking at a pretty full house here aboard the International Space Station. We have the crew that will fly on Soyuz MS-23 to return home later this year, as well as the crew that arrived on Crew 6, and now the Ax-2 crew.
Frank, Houston on 2, good scene check. We didn't hear audio on the handheld mic. Can you check the switch position? Frank, we're checking the config on the ground. Stand by. Frank, if you wouldn't mind, give us another long count. We needed to sync things up. Thanks, Frank. We're good on scene and voice. Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. We are ready for the event.
Please begin the welcome ceremony.
Houston and SpaceX, congratulations on a beautiful launch and a beautiful docking. It is great to have new friends up here. And so on behalf of Expedition 69, it's an honor to welcome our new crewmates. I'll pass it off to the ISS commander, Sergei Prokopiev.
Welcome on board, dear friends. This is very nice to see you here. Expedition 69, so glad to have you here with us on space station, and we looked forward to your arrival here at least 1 month, and watched yesterday your amazing launch, and this is outstanding returning first stage of Falcon 9 on the launch pad. It's so grateful, and congratulations with successful launch and your docking. And as for me, this is a very great honor to work next with Peggy Whitson, so most experienced and decorated astronaut in the U.S. Astronaut Corps. And congratulations, new astronauts, Rayyanah, John, Ali, and my congratulations, all of us. We have now 11 person on the space station, and my big congratulations of Saudi Space Commission, and I'm sure you will have a great achievement in the future in your space exploration. Thank you so much, and welcome aboard.
Thank you so much, Sergey. I'll make sure. Yeah, you left it on. Thank you so much. We really are excited to be here. It was a great launch, a great ride. We had a lot of fun on the way up. And we're really excited to get a lot of work done up here. But it's great for me to come back personally. It does feel like home. You might need some help, though, for a while. I could help you with some of these things. But it's a lot of fun to be here and to see this place again. It means so much to me, and I think it actually brings people together just by being here. So I wanted you to meet my crew, so I want each of them to talk a little bit about their objectives and why they're here, and maybe a little bit about the ride. It's on.
Hi, I'm John Shoffner. You know, part of the Ax-2 crew. It's an honor to be here and make new friends in space. First time I've done that for sure. So I've been dreaming or working toward this since I was 8 in a young astronauts club, you know, watching Gemini pilots do their thing. So we had cardboard boxes pretending to be Gemini pilots. So you'd think having that much time to prepare, I'd have some better words than this. But, you know, it's having a chance to be here and fly with this amazing new crew, Ali and Ray, and of course with Peggy Whitson, the awesome Peggy Whitson. And to join Expedition 69 is a fabulous thing for me, for anyone to be able to do. I'm honored. I'd like to thank NASA for creating the opportunity and opening the doors for private and commercial space exploration, and also the ingenuity of SpaceX and Axiom and to develop the next level of space platforms and space access for everyone. I want to say thanks to my lovely wife for those magic words one day. She looked on the news and said, "Look, you can finally go to space." She was right. Thank you for that, Janine. Otherwise, we look forward to some great work for STEM education outreach and some amazing science that we have going on up here, and I hope you guys will follow us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. This is Ali Alqarni. If you just allow me to start speaking in Arabic first. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وشكرا. هذه الكلمتين هي اللي تصف شعوري هذه اللحظة. الحمد لله بتيسيره وفضله وصلنا إلى محطة الفضاء الدولية. شكرا لحكامنا بقيادتهم وحكمتهم ونظرتهم في المستقبل وتطور البشرية. شكرا لاهتمامهم بمجال الفضاء. شكرا لأسرتي على الدعم اللامحدود اللي حظيت منهم. شكرا لزوجتي وأهلي جميعا. شكرا لهيئة السعودية للفضاء بتحقيق هذا الحلم للناس، وقريبا إن شاء الله سينضمون لنا الكثير بإذن الله. شكرا لناسا، شكرا أكسيوم وسبيس إكس على هذه الفرصة. كانت تجربة الإقلاع تجربة تاريخية، تجربة سوف تخلد في ذاكرتي إلى الأبد وذاكرة اللي معي. صراحة كان طاقم رحلة مميز جدا، وإحنا هنا الآن من أجل القيام بالتجارب العلمية اللي فيها نفع إن شاء الله البشرية، ونعود بنتائج جميلة إن شاء الله. Thank you everybody for the great welcome. It is such an honor and a privilege to be here and meet all of you, as John said, making space friends. So I'm really excited to work alongside with you, all of you, and eager to just share your expertise with me and learn from you. Thank you. Thank you to our King and his Crown Prince for their support and trust in us. Thank you to the Saudi people, because this mission is not just for me and Rayyanah. This mission is all Saudi people with ambition and dreams, and also you can dream big, because in our country, with the support we have, you will be able to reach it. Thank you, everybody.
Hello everyone, so this is Rayyanah Barnawii. Also, if you allow me, I'll start in Arabic first. تحية طيبة من الفضاء الخارجي. الحمد لله، بفضل الله وصلنا لهذه المرحلة. نحن الآن يعني نعيش حلم ما كنا نتخيل انه هو ممكن يصير حقيقة. الحمد لله، بدعم من الحكومة، بدعم من قيادتنا، بدعم من أسرنا، بدعم من الجميع. هذه الرحلة ما تمثلني أنا لوحدي ولا تمثل بس طموحي، بالعكس هي تمثل كل الوطن العربي، تمثل كل السعوديين. الحمد لله أن احنا جاتنا هذه الفرصة، أن احنا فقط نقدر نوصل الآن لمحطة الفضاء الدولية، لكن بعد كده عندنا أكيد طموحات أكبر وأكبر، منها القمر، منها المريخ. لازم نستكشف الفضاء، هذه هي فرصتنا. زي ما تشوفوا دحين جنسيات كثيرة متجمعة في مكان واحد، فالفضاء هو اللي يجمع كل هذه الجنسيات المختلفة بأفكارهم واستكشافاتهم معلوماتهم. فالحمد لله ان احنا وصلنا هذه المرحلة مع هذا الفريق الجميل. وصلنا الحمد لله بعد تدريب تقريبا 10 شهور. فهذا التدريب قابلنا رواد فضاء سابقين، قابلنا بيجي ويتسون، قابلنا مدربين دربوا رواد آخرين في ناسا وفي جاكسا وفي إيسا. وفي نفس الوقت التدريب اللي جهزوه أكسيوم واللي جهزوه سبيس إكس، شعور انطلاق الصاروخ صراحة أنا دموعي ما قدرت توقف، لأني حسيت إنه أخذتكم كلكم معايا هنا. فالحمد لله على التمام والكمال. الحمد لله على وجود قائدنا ذو الرؤية الطموحة سمو سيدي الأمير محمد بن سلمان. الحمد لله على وجوده، والحمد لله على أنه قدرنا نحقق هذا الحلم، وهذه أول خطوة، ونستنى بعد كده بإذن الله أشخاص كثير يكونوا موجودين هنا من العالم العربي أجمع. So greetings from outer space. I'm here not only representing myself, but representing the hopes and dreams of everyone back home, everyone in the region. We are here gathering with different cultures and this international collaboration. This shows how space brings everyone together. It brings even different backgrounds. Some of us are doctors, some of us are researchers, engineers, and so on. I'm very happy to be here representing the dreams and hopes of everyone back home, and at the same time I'm very glad that I've received extensive training from trainers who have trained previous astronauts like NASA, JAXA, ESA, and SpaceX and Axiom. I'm very happy to be here, and thank you all for listening. Thank you for letting me share my feelings, and I'm going to live this experience to the max.
Great. Well, we all are excited for all of the new astronauts here, and we have something special. Ray, would you hold this while I pin John?
Oh, wow.
Give him his official astronaut pin. John is the 598th astronaut.
Wow. I don't think I'm ready for clapping yet.
And Ollie, I can get it up.
Mic is off.
Okay. So Ollie is the 599th astronaut.
Thank you.
And our little Ray is 600. I'm going to stick myself more than anything. Okay, here we go. All right. So thanks to inviting all of us up here and welcoming 3 new astronauts.
Okay, and that concludes the ceremony. Thank you guys so much. Again, it really feels like the International Space Station up here. This is going to be an awesome week. We're all excited and super happy to have you guys up here.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Copy.
And with completion of the welcome ceremony, another big welcome to the Axiom 2 crew, our second private astronaut mission crew to arrive at the International Space Station. We now have 11 people living and working on the International Space Station. Again, we're looking for those Ax-2 crew members to live and work on the orbiting lab for the next 8 days. We saw docking this morning at 8:12 a.m. Central Time, 9:12 a.m. Eastern, and hatch opening from Dragon to the International Space Station at 10 Central, 11 Eastern. All of this following launch yesterday at 5:37 p.m. Eastern from Florida. It was a smooth ride uphill, approximately 16 hours ahead of that docking today. And again, now we are expecting these crew members to live and work on the space station for about 8 days before beginning their journey home to Earth. So for future updates on NASA missions, as well as what you can expect from the Ax-2 crew on their return coverage, you can keep an eye on nasa.gov. But with that, that'll wrap us up here in Mission Control Houston, and I'm going to send it back to my friends at SpaceX.
Thank you so much, Leah. Excellent coverage from Johnson Space Center, really following along with all the integrated operations that ultimately led us to what a touching welcoming ceremony. Now, with that, we are going to wrap up our live joint coverage of Peggy, John, Ali, and Rayyanah's arrival to the International Space Station. It's been an honor to support the Ax-2 mission thus far. We wish the Axiom crew a successful time on station, and we look forward to joining you when it's time to bring them back home.
Absolutely. And Kate, I just want to say from launch to docking, it has been an absolute pleasure sharing this desk with you. So thank you, spasiba, and shukran. Over the course of our crew's time on station, we will be providing daily mission updates from Axiom Mission Control to highlight the range of science research and STEAM education events the crew will be conducting over the course of their 8 days on station. Be sure to visit axiomspace.com and follow the Axiom social media channels for real-time updates.
And with that, on behalf of SpaceX, Axiom Space, and NASA, thank you all for tuning in to watch. See you soon.